that's not the typical.
No, where did you get something like that?
I actually bought this at Aldi, believe it or not.
At where?
Aldi has an aisle where they have tchotchkes, and
Aldi.
it's every week is something different. So this was like $7.50, and it's actually advertised as something to put your laptop on rather than your book. But it works fine for a book.
I would agree. I would put my Gemara in something like that. Yeah.
They actually, I looked it up on Amazon. They sell them for about less than $8. It's a little more than Aldi.
The same thing.
It is on Amazon.
Same exact thing.
So get him one.
Yeah.
I've seen that. Get him one. The tzaddik. All right, so for $8, you can
I can
get
do
it.
this it's a great thing. If it's,
I hear, and
You
it's
davened
bolts
at
up
the
to
7
nothing.
o'clock.
It's
You davened at the 7 o'clock meeting this morning, all right? That
I was
worked out.
there at 6:30, so
Yeah.
I decided to go to the 7 o'clock meeting instead.
Okay.
He's so anxious to get his free membership that he's coming early, 5 years and half an hour.
I'm getting in the habit. That's
I
all.
hear it,
Don't let him give you
because when he gets his free membership, he wants to get every penny's worth.
Today's All Saints Day. Watch yourself.
That's
That's
a
the
guy,
right
I wouldn't
tomorrow.
even say that, that's a goyish shazah.
Oh, it's a great the Fazuge.
Du bist ein Avodah Zulani.
It's really Chas v'Shulam.
When you're talking about the All Saints Day.
Yeah, this is Saint Mordechai. Anyway, Rabbi's not.
I don't think they made Mordechai.
No, I
Made
don't
him
think so.
excited.
God made him a tzaddik.
Okay, gentlemen, I'm going to start the learning sponsors. Year of where's Ruben this morning? He's not.
He's not here.
Do you see him?
No.
He wasn't
here.
in show this morning.
He
either.
wasn't in show.
Yeah,
And he's not on this Zoom.
and I not on the Zoom
Well, we
yet.
did the dot yesterday.
Okay. The Year of Learning, Friends of Melaskotsky, Moshe Seligman, Mordechai, Martin Lipman and family in memory of his wife, Malka Chana Bat Pinchas, Friends of Herb Jeremiah, Tzvi Ben Zev, Friends of Sam Coleman, Shmuel Ben Yaakov, Friends of Gideon Lozinski, Mordechai Shlomo Ben Meir, Bella and David Adler in memory of her father, Eliyahu Ben Yosef Kohen, those who were inspired by our Rebbetzin Emerita, Sheila Shapiro, Sarah Esther Malka Bat Meshulam Yisachar, Gail and Leslie Kaplan, in memory of their parents, Mushka Shprinza Bat Yosef Chaim V'Chava, Chanan Ben Moshe Eliezer V'Chana, Pesha Bat Shmuel Yitzchak Halevi V'Tzipora, Isra Ben Yoel Moshe Cohen V'Chana. Wexford Friends of Gladys Sherman, Gutta Bat Meir, Michael Klein and Friends of Judah Klein, Yehuda Tzvi Ben Chaim, Marsha Brana in memory of her husband, Rav Yerachmiel Ben Shmuel, a month of learning by Ruben and Susan Podolsky, in memory of his father, Tzvi Ben Pinchas, a week of learning by Chaim Aber, in memory of his father, Aaron Meir, by Ruth Burian, in memory of her husband, Moshe Ben Mordechai. No individual days of learning today.
Where are we going to be Friday?
Next door in the
On one of those on those tables.
in the front.
That's where we're going to learn Friday.
No, that's where we'll eat. We could still learn here and then just go in there to eat.
Okay.
Huh?
But then the food will disappear.
I don't think so.
Yes, it will. Absolutely. There's no question about it.
Part of it will.
They put out food. They put out cake on a fancy tray.
People
and
always come.
For people who just wanted to make it. And one guy came, took the whole tray, took it out to his car and drove off.
You're kidding me.
Nope. And Ruvain paid his $25 for a seat.
Yeah, that he
And a
told me.
whole family took
Yeah,
that
he did.
table, and he said, but I paid for this seat.
He
And
told
they
me.
told him, I'm terribly sorry. We have a family visiting. We need this table.
He
So
told me
Ruvain
that
had to go
story.
home.
He told me that story.
So you think, I mean, that's why let's learn there. Then I'll bring the
Fine.
food there. I'm not going to bring the food. and
No,
have it taken by
exactly.
the
No, fine, I wasn't aware.
Oh, yeah.
The second story Ruvain told me, the first
All right,
story,
and how about the last time I brought bagels and people
Well,
took
that's-
them and they.
So we're
and
gonna
they-
learn
when
in
I
there,
wanted
we'll
to
learn in
sue
there.
someone, the rabbi said, leave them alone. So that meant someone didn't get.
I ran a Seder at the nursing home. And because some family members came, the guy, as he's walking out, takes a 2-pound box of Shmura box.
Right,
Matzahs,
right,
the box.
right. $70.
I mean, hello.
No, he didn't say hello. He said goodbye.
What am I supposed to run after and make a scene?
Yes. Take out your gun and shoot him. Get Paretsky to shoot him. You're in Florida, you're allowed.
Give him a stun gun.
all right, gentlemen, let's get to Gemara. Okay. We are actually starting this morning on Ayin Tet Amud Beis, the very last line, if I remember
That's
correctly.
correct. The last four
Right.
words.
Okay,
I'm a Reish Lakish.
Right,
exactly.
3 words.
Okay, so that being the case, we see that there was a discussion as to whether or not the husband, having brought a woman with him from Medina Sayyam and children, whether he has to present any kind of proof to what degree it is that
wife
what the yichus of the wife and the children. Okay,
And according to
and
Rish Lakish, the
we
guy's a
see,
Kohen.
well, we'll get to that in a second. Okay, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so it's 79B3 or
You don't have
B4,
to, it's only
depending on
3
what.
words.
Okay, so the point I want to make as we get into today's Gemara is that we ended with the concept that it depends, that you could have the same problem whether it was the man who came with 2 wives at the same time, or whether he came with a wife, but it's his second wife. And therefore, in either case, that's where the Gemara pointed out the question of older children, younger children, things like that. Okay, so that's where so even with a single wife, we don't know if that's the same wife that he traveled with, or whether that's so to speak, a second wife that he picked up along the way, in a sense. And when he was traveling,
I'm telling Karen,
yeah,
I'm squealing.
Maybe suppose it's a second wife. But the second wife saw children from the first wife. She would bring up those children. Those children would cling to her.
No, they
we don't
wouldn't.
know.
We're talking.
The older and younger. So all we're saying
15-year-olds don't want
is-
hugs. They don't cling, but
Ye-
3-year-olds do.
Yeah.
whether it is the same woman, okay? I mean, whether it's 2 wives or whether it's a second wife, a second marriage, and the wife from the second marriage, okay? That's where we pointed that out, that was the could be either case, and as a result, the man, the Beis Din, would still require him to provide proof for the yichus of the woman and the children.
I'm thinking if Yosef was brought up by his stepmother. Someone like that would cling to her also.
Yeah, but we're talking about the rove of people.
All right.
And
That's
we're
what I
talking
just said.
about they all have a cheskes kashrus, but we're talking about eating truma. We'll see.
We'll see in a second.
So you have to go a
Okay.
little bit.
So
more-
Amar Reish Lakish. Now we go to our daf for today. Pei Amud Aleph. Lo shanu ela b'kodshe hagvul. No, Reish Lakish says what we're talking about here is an attempt to clarify the fact of the yichus, which would acknowledge the fact that the person is able to eat the truma, challah, things like that. Okay, by eating truma, okay, as it happens. Okay, so what happens here? Just as an aside, there is a machloket between Tosafot and Rashi on this particular little section of Gemara. Okay, as to not just that truma, kodshe gvul means the area in which
It's outside
truma,
of Jerusalem.
okay, is acceptable to be eaten. Okay, and so therefore, aval biyuchasin lo. But Reish Lakish argues, okay, it's one thing whether it applies to the viability of somebody eating truma, but it doesn't necessarily give us a presumption, I'll use that word for the moment, that his status of what his yichus is. Okay? Rabbi Yochanan disagrees. Amar, he says, afilu biyuchasin. No, it does apply to yichus and therefore applies to his status potentially as a Kohen. In other words, seeming to imply that if he's able to eat truma, we can make a basic assumption that he's a Kohen, and that therefore, as a result, that would be his yichus for marriage as well.
Right. That the man, the traveler's daughter, could marry a Kohen.
Right. So what happens? Ba'azda Rabbi Yochanan Latame. And Rabbi Yochanan followed his perspective, his line of reasoning. Damar Rabbi Chia bar Abba Amar Rabbi Yochanan, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Malkin al Hachazakot. Okay, that we can give a person malchus based on certain chazaka, presumptions. So clean v'sorfin al Hachazakot, that we can burn and stone on certain chazakot. Ve'ein sorfin truma al hachazakot, but we do not burn truma, okay, based on simply on chazak.
Well,
right?
that's strange, isn't it? That we should kill a person based upon a.
Well, the Gemara has found it strange too. That's why it's going to continue, Bob. Good point. Okay, all right. The implication is, how can Rabbi Yochanan really hold this? Right? Okay. We don't. That's the problem.
We always,
So,
Under what circumstances?
if it's coming.
okay, we don't
then
normally, we
the
don't
only
normally
you
burn.
get is if it's
Okay.
fuel.
So the point is, the Gemara is going to come back and review that statement as well. Okay, and come up with a hachika amar approach. Okay, so what happens? Malkina lechazakot. Okay, how did Rav Yochanan hold that one can get malchus? Okay, Rav Yehuda, like the view of Rav Yehuda, the Amar Rav Yehuda. Okay, namely the following: Huchzaka nida mishchinotah. Okay, about the situation where a woman who apparently in their day dressed somewhat differently than every day, than commonly. So she was dressed uniquely, and not only was she dressed uniquely, okay, but would often be separated, okay, in physically from being with other individuals, particularly eating and things like that. Well, dafka from her husband, but from other women too sometimes. B'shchinotah, that she was recognized as a nida by her neighbors, right? Ba'ala lokeh aleha mishum nida, that were the husband to have the relations with her when she was a nida, which is over doraita. Okay, clearly then he could get malchus.
But
That
even
was
there's no witnesses. They
okay.
only know
This
that
was
they went into the room.
when, well, this is what their neighbors were saying. The neighbors were saying, and therefore people are therefore saying that Rabbi Yochanan felt that based on Rabbi Yehuda's view, that was enough to clarify that he would get malchus. What about the next example? So clean v'sorfin al hazakot, that here too we say we can stone and burn based on the chazaka. Kidarav bar Rav Huna, as based of Rabba bar Bar Huna. Da Amar Rabba bar Bar Huna, ish v'isha tinok v'tinoket shehigdilu b'toch habayit. We see a situation where there's an adult man and woman and younger people as well, all living in the same household. And the presumption is that they are living as a family, but it becomes known that the man is having relations with the younger woman and the older woman is having relations with the younger man. Okay? In other words, incest is going on theoretically in this household. Okay, that's the situation. Niskalin ze al ze v'nisrafin ze el ze. Okay, that the case of potential incest, the presumed status of the adults was that they were the status of parents, and therefore, if arayos is occurring in this quote family, therefore that the punishment is to be
But
carried out.
the woman and the boy.
Well, you get different
skila,
punishments.
And the man and the
Girl
girl
gets
gets
raped.
raped.
Right, that's why it includes both Niskalin and Nisrafi. Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi, Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, Mishum bar Kapara. Maaseh be'isha. We have a particular incident, he says, with a woman, Shabbat Yerushalayim, Batinok Murkav la al Ktefeha. And a child was, so to speak, riding on her shoulders. Okay? Vehigdilato, and she raised this young man. Uba aleha, and later, and at some point, he had relations with her. Vahevi'un lebeit din v'salklum, and they brought them to the Beis Din. People, again, the chazaka was thought to be that this was the mother of the child. Okay, and it turned out perhaps otherwise. Okay, and therefore they were punished with skila. Lo mipnei shebana vadai, not because it was clearly or certainly her son, right? Ela mipnei shekaruch achareha, but simply because the child was hanging on to her.
That made it
Attach her, and that gave the community the assumption of the chazaka of a mother and child. Ve'ein sorfin truma al hachazakot, but we've said that we do not burn truma based on chazakot. Why? The Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, who said as follows: sorfin al hachazakot, who says that we do burn truma based on presumptions. Rabbi Yochanan Omer ein sorfin va'azdu l'tamayu. And Rabbi Yochanan disagreed and say we don't burn based on chazaka, and each follow their own perspective, their own view. Ditznan, as we learn elsewhere, okay, in another text, right? Tinok shnimtsa b'tzad ha'esa. If we find that we have a child, an infant, that is sitting by a pile of dough, ubatsek biado, and he's holding in his hand an amount of dough. Rabbi Meir mitaher. Rabbi Meir says it's tahor.
That the dough is tahor.
Right. V'chachamim mitamim. But the sages say that no, that dough is considered tameh. We remember we have a chazaka that small children crawl around almost any. We're going to get to it in tomorrow. Almost anywhere, and that what they handle, they can handle garbage, they can handle shratzim, they can handle all sorts of things. And so that the chazaka is that the status of that small child is basically tameh, okay? Or if you don't like that pshat, I'll give you a different pshat, namely the fact that a child is often held close, kissed, etc., by their mother, and very often the mother could be a nida. Okay, okay. But all I'm simply saying is those are two different pshatim that we see that both could be applicable in this situation to understand why one might hold a chazaka for the child to be tameh. Okay.
How far does Bezdin have to look into something, or really look into something, or really look into something before they say chazaka?
Your peasant has nothing to do with the chazaka. Chazaka exists on its own.
One second, before you burn somebody, you probably
It has to be very clear.
Okay.
You don't just go around killing it.
All right.
understand.
I'm going to answer this way. Okay. A chazaka is a presumption. Okay. Before you act on any presumption, it must be examined. Remember, the Gemara has told us, for example, I'm just throwing another case in. Shmuel held, right, or one of the others, Chachamim held a shtuki, he called them beduki. Okay, that a child who knew the mother's heritage but not the father's, you needed to examine. Okay, so if he said that in terms of the yichus of the child, how much more so would we have to say with a chazaka in other cases? Okay, just using the Gemara parallel. Thank you. Okay, so what happens? Oh, why do we make this a chazaka that the child it could be tamei? Because it's common practice, okay, that a child crawls around, okay, and whatever it weighs in the garbage, could handle an animal, a dead animal, even. Again, by the way, I'm not going to go into it, but there is another argument between Tosafot and Rashi and this issue too. Okay, Vahavinen, we discussed this. My Tama, the Rabbi Meir. What was the reasoning of Rabbi Meir that he said that Asa, that dough in the hand of the child could be?
Not the Isa in the bowl.
Okay, was tahor. Vavinen ba my Tama, the Rabbi Meir. Kasava rov tinakot metapchim umiut ein metapchim. That the majority of infants crawl around, and a minority doesn't crawl around. Ve'esa b'chezkat tahara omedet, and that dough that we're now talking about, not in his hand, but in the bowl or on the whatever the table there, whatever trough, whatever. Okay, has a chazaka of its own that it would be tahara. Okay. Now, v'samuch mi'uta l'chazaka, but don't we perhaps say that we can weaken this chazaka? Okay, isn't that possible because the child was right next to it? Okay, itra le ruba, that weakens the majority.
You're translating that wrong. We take the minority of kids who are not playing with garbage and add it to the chazaka of the
Isa. Okay,
and
I was going to phrase it differently.
Gives you like 102 versus
Well,
the 98.
okay, I was going to phrase it a little differently. Okay, all right. So we attach this minority that don't crawl, okay, to that of the dough, and that's going to weaken that majority, that ruba. For Rabbanan, but what about the rabbis? All right, miuta kemanda letadam. Okay, the rabbis hold that minority, okay, is like never was. Didn't exist.
Ruba kukula.
Okay, ruba v'chazaka. Normally, when we have a majority, okay, and a chazaka, ruba adif, then the majority is to be preferred. Amar Reish Lakish, but Reish Lakish says Mishum Rabbi Yoshia, in the name of Rabbi Yoshia, Zohi shesorfina leha et truma. That's the kind of situation when the truma would be tameh. That's when we do burn. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Ein zo chazaka shesorfina leha truma. That is not enough of a chazaka that we burn the truma. Okay. Ela, rather, Ezu chazaka Rabbi Yochanan. What do we then say is Rabbi Yochanan's understanding of the situation? Shesorfina leha et truma. When is it such that we actually would burn the truma? Keditznan, as taught elsewhere in the Mishnah, Eser b'toch habayit v'shratzim v'sfardeim mataflin sham. That there is dough in the house, and you have two kinds of animals, shratzim that are clearly would render it tameh, but sfardim would not necessarily render the dough tameh. Okay, and they're all jumping and crawling around.
And there's evidence.
Okay, whatever. Okay, and what happens? Says the Gemara, v'nimtzeu chatichot be'esa. And you find either pieces of dough or marks in the dough, okay, from some creature, right? Im rov shratzim, if the majority are clearly shratzim, tamea, then that dough is considered tamea. Im rov tzfardeim, if the majority of the footprints, or I can be that of frogs, tahora, it would be the dough would be tahara. Tanya kavate de Rabbi Yochanan, and we have a braita. that also teaches the view of Rabbi Yochanan. Shnei dvarim ein bohem da'at lish'el. Okay, what we have to understand here is basically that in situations of tuma and tara, okay, we usually have a general principle that says if it's in rabim, it's tahor, if it's yachid, it's tameh, but that's only based on the ability to ask and get an answer in that kind of questionable situation, right? So keeping that principle in mind, that it's contingent on being asked, what we have here? A braita that says, Shnei dvarim, ein bohem dat l'sha'el. There are two situations where we do not have enough knowledge of the one involved to be able to ask a valid question as to the circumstances, okay, vis-a-vis the tuma tara condition. Va'asaum chachamim kama sheyesh bohem dat l'sha'ol. And it's the sages that required that it has to be based on the ability to ask, right? One is a tinok, clearly, which is what we've been discussing. Va'od acheret, and another one, tinoku, okay? Why did we say the thing? Ha da'amran, just as we've just discussed. Va'od acheret, and the other example, what is it? He esa b'toch habayit. It's a question of dough, okay, in the household. What happens in this household? V'tarnagolim, there were also chickens, umashkim tmeim, and there was also certain kinds of liquids that were tamei. Okay, sham, right, in that same household, v'nimtzeu nikurim, and we saw pecks, I'm going to call it, in the dough, right? Nikurim be'esa, and we saw pecks, okay, inside the dough, all right? And what happens there? Our assumption may be that the birds drank, okay, the liquid first, okay, or they had their beaks were wet, and therefore then were pecking at the dough.
And made it.
Okay, what happened? Tolin, all right, and therefore, what do we say? That dough, therefore, is in the status of questionable. Okay, safek. Lo ochlin velo surfin. We neither eat it nor can we burn it. Okay, so what happens? That after the birds pecked holes in the dough, right? Okay, our Gemara continues. Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, what did he tell us in regards to that example? Lo shanu ela b'mashkim levani. That was taught in regards to what we might call white or clear liquids. Aval b'mashkim adumi. But if we're talking about thicker liquids or colored liquids or things like that, im ata danakir, im ita danakir, medayadia. If we could see that there were pecks in the dough, that would be known.
And that were stained.
Okay. Well, we'll get to that. Okay. All right. Midayadea, we would know that. Okay. Right. We would either see the pecks and they would have the colored liquid at the location. Okay. Or if it was clear liquid, okay, we wouldn't know for sure. Okay. Vadilma baliyatenu esa. But the Gemara says, but what about maybe they swallowed pieces of the dough and we wouldn't know?
The dough absorbed the liquid and the stain is no longer
right, we'll get. All right, and perhaps either the animal swallowed the dough, so we wouldn't know, or the dough itself could have absorbed some of that liquid, and therefore we don't know the status of the dough.
Yeah, but a practical question. Who's gonna leave uncovered dough around with his liquids or chickens or anything else? It's gonna cover up the dough.
One would hope.
This is
I mean, the nature of people is to cover up the dough.
These are
what time? I mean, I'm not saying it won't happen, but the probability is much lower.
These are not necessary unless it says it's a Maisa Shahaya, it's a theoretical case.
Okay.
What they're trying to say
They're
is
bringing another
how
example.
do you analyze a situation? And they're saying if there are marks in the dough, but it was clear liquid, you have to go lachumra because they probably got liquid. But if it's a red liquid and there are no stains on the dough, then you
don't
can
know.
go lakula and say the dough is still tahar because a chicken does not metame dough.
The point is they, right, the point,
Right, that's
the point is they were trying to bring another case.
what is
Okay,
the
and guys, come on, okay? So the question is having to bring another case where again you would try to tell whether there was a suffix or whether you could be for sure. Okay, right? Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Davar zeh shema b'Rebbe. Okay, this is what we heard from Rebbe. Uperusho lo shama, and we didn't hear his explanation. Okay, lo shanu ela b'mashkim tzlulim. They didn't teach this only in regards to a situation where we had again the clear liquids. Shebeboah shel tinok mikarba. Okay, that therefore the child's face could be seen. That's what we mean by clear
reflected
liquid.
in the liquid.
In the liquid. Aval mashkim achurim, but if it's cloudy, the liquids, or dark or colored, low. That would be the situation. Okay. Now we go to a new Mishnah. Just a quick introduction to this new Mishnah. Okay. The person whose shiur I listened to for preparation made an interesting point. I won't go into the details, but I would simply tell us that as we continue with this new Mishnah, we're dealing with the laws of Yichud. Okay? And his point was basically that times have changed. And how is it possible that we can say that exactly the way the Mishnah is going to describe things is truly applicable in our own day? Okay? And so as we go through the Mishnah, I'm not saying that we try to apply it to our own day, but we may see that there are certain, I'm not asking us to apply it now in the shiur, okay? But I want us to understand that there's going to be scenarios that are presented, okay, that the Gemara is going to address, okay, rather than jump ahead, as to say there are people that are ksherim and there are people that are not considered ksherim. Okay, enough of that's the short introduction. Matnitni. Lo yityached adam im shtei nashim. A man should not make himself alone, okay, with two women. Okay? All right. What happens? Aval isha achat mityachedet im shnei anashim. But the Mishnah is saying that one woman could be make herself alone with two men. Okay.
One woman.
Right. Rabbi Shimon Omer, says Rabbi Shimon, Af ish echad mityached im shtei nashim, that even one man can be alone with two women, bisman sheishto imo, at the time that his wife is with him. Now, I do want to just point out here that, okay, no, wait, we're going to get to that in a second. We're going to get to that in a second. That's why I want to just pause for a moment and tell you there is, I didn't read it all inside, but there is an extensive disagreement in this case between Rashi and Tosafot. Okay? That Tosafot is saying, okay, in essence, as Tzvi just raised the question, that you're really talking about a situation of the man with three women, his wife and two others. And therefore, in that situation, Tosafot says it's acceptable. Okay? Vis-a-vis Rashi, okay, who says it's his wife and a second woman, and Rashi does not say that that's acceptable. So it's a major.
No, it is acceptable. Read the next part of the Mishnah.
We'll see. Hold on. wait, please, okay? All right? Rashi is saying that that's not acceptable, a man and a woman, his wife and another woman. Okay, so it's a major machloket there between Rashi and Tosafot. Okay, now we go on to the next part of the Mishnah. Okay, v'yashen imahem b'pundaki, and he's able to sleep with them in a B&B, okay, in a okay, whatever. Mipnei she'ishto mishparto. Why? Because his wife is going to protect him. Okay, you want to say keep an eye on him? Fine. Okay. Okay. Now, furthermore, mityached adam im imo ve'im bito. A man may be alone with his mother or with his daughter. V'yashan imahem b'kiruv basar. And he may even sleep with them, okay, without the bedclothes on. Ve'im higdilo. Okay, zo yeshena b'ksuta, v'ze yashen b'ksuto. But if they are older,
girl is grown
okay,
up.
if they are older, all right, then she sleeps in her bedclothes and he sleeps in his bedclothes. Okay? So that's our Mishnah. So now we're going to go into a Gemara that's going to try to clarify some of the sections of the Mishnah. My Tama, what's the reasoning here in our Mishnah, particularly when we say that a man cannot be with two women, but a woman can be with two men? Okay? Tana Deber Eliyahu, and it was taught in the Academy of Rabbi Eliyahu, Ho'il v'nashim da'atan kalot alehem. Okay, I'm going to explain this as follows. Okay, that the concern here would be that it's possible that we might argue that women could easily be swayed or seduced. Okay, and in that situation, okay, the woman would not always necessarily be afraid to sin in front of another woman, particularly because it's possible that the one woman might cover for the other woman. Okay. Mina hani mili, on what basis is this? Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Yishmael, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, in the name of Rabbi Yishmael. Remez, what? Liich, right? Liyichud min haTorah, minayim. On what basis is this? Can we say from the Torah? Right? Shneamar ki yisitcha achecha. Okay, ben imecha. Okay, when your brother from your mother tries to, so to speak, seduce you. Now that deals with avodah zara in that particular case. Okay, in that particular pasuk. But it says, but the language of the pasuk points out, okay, and says, achicha ben imcha. That's the question. V'chi ben im masit. Are we therefore saying that your brother through your mother is going to be able to seduce? Ben av eno masit. That your brother through your father is not capable of seducing one? In other words, leading one astray in general? Ela lamala, but rather to tell you. Ben mityached im imo. But our Mishnah comes to tell us a son can be alone with his mother. Va'asur lehityached im kol arayot shebatorah. But he is prohibited from being alone with any of the other arayot, okay, that are designated in the Torah. Okay?
Which is a little bit of a stira on the Mishnah.
Okay, right? Again, another machloket between Tosafot and Rashi. Okay, as to what degree do we understand yichud and arayot, and okay, and how, what's the definition there? Okay, so what happens? Pashte dekra. Okay, so what's the basic meaning of the pasuk? B'mai kativ, what's written there? Amar Abai, says Abai, lo mabai kama. No, the language, says Abai, is it's even not necessary to even raise the question.
Even this.
Okay, what we're going to see as follows. Lo mabai, we don't even have to raise the question or present ben av the sanile, that the son of the same father might lead him astray.
No. The
Okay.
son.
Wait. Ve'iyetz le etzot ra'ot, and prevent and share with him bad advice, give him wrong directions.
Ben of the son means that you a sibling from the same
Father would leave
may
him.
not like you because he wants the Yerusha.
Well, we'll get to that,
But
Michael.
that's what the
I-
son is, to hate.
The hate, yes, that's what we're saying. But okay, all right. So what is it? The point being, Ve'iyetz le'etzot ra'ot. Okay, so the implication is that the father from the same father might give him bad advice. Why might there be more competition, and that the one of the father of the same, brothers from the same father be right? Because there's the possibility of what's involved with the Yerusha, okay, with the inheritance, property, things like that, okay? Ella, rather, Ella afilu ben im ben aim, even the son from the same mother, delo sanela, where he might not hate him. Ema, I might say, saitele, okay? Therefore, the question is, would he always give him the best advice? We don't know. Kamash Malan. It comes the text to tell us that's not necessarily the case. Okay? Now we go on. Okay. Nema matnitin delo ke'abashol. That would then tell us, we would need to say that our Mishnah cannot be according to Abba Shaul. The Tanya. Why? Because Abba Shaul taught as follows. Okay, regarding the situation of the death of an infant within 30 days, the following bright. Kol shloshim yom yotzei b'cheh v'nikbar, that the dead fetus is brought out, or dead child is brought out and buried. Bi'isha achat u'shnei anashim, with one woman, okay, and two men. Aval lo be'ish echad u'shtei nashim, but not with one man and two women. Abba Shaul omer, however, Abba Shaul was saying, af be'ish echad u'shtei nashim, even with one man and two women.
In that unique sense.
Okay, in that particular scenario, okay, we're going to see the question is, would they go out in a distant place to bury the dead body, but at the same time involved in sexual activity? Okay, afilu tema Abba Shaul. You might even say that it could be according to Abba Shaul. Why? B'sha'at aninut tavir yitzrei. It's possible that even in a time of, well, I don't want to use exactly the word mourning, but in the time of aninut, that the yetzer, okay, would overcome, would take over. Okay?
No, the opposite.
Okay? Or, wait a second, or that he would be able, because of the sadness of the situation, that he would be able to overcome his yetzer. That's why I said, hold on a second. Okay? What happens? All right? So Tavir Yitzrei, that in such a time, that maybe Abba Shaul holds that the loss would overcome any proclivity for sexual activity under those circumstances. Rabbanan Savre, but the rabbis, la, Rabbi Yitzchak, they hold like Rabbi Yitzchak, Dama Rabbi Yitzchak, Ma Yitonein Adam Chai, Gavar Al Chata'av. Based on this pasuk, okay, is it possible that a person will overcome such situations? Afilu b'sha'at aninuto shel Adam yitzro mitgaber alav. That it's very possible that even in such situations, a person's yetzer might overcome them.
Does Gemara make a differentiation between the age of these people?
They're adult. They're all adults.
Okay, we're assuming that with the death of a child, that
No,
it's
not
a
that in general, but the yichud stuff.
For a woman, it's over 3 and a
Well,
day, and for a man,
the
it's
Gemara-
9.
You understand
the
what I'm
Gemara
saying?
here
You have
does
a
not.
80-year-old man and an 80-year-old man. Big
Well,
difference, a woman,
yes.
So I just said
Right.
9 plus a day for males, 3 plus a day for females.
Okay, all I'm saying is the Gemara does not spell it out right here. We would have to take that from other places, okay? Other or Meforshim, okay? And that's why I said the shiur I listened to went into that kind of question in more detail. Do you say there's a difference between an 80-year-old man and a 30 or 40-year-old man? Okay, all right. Okay. But we're not going to get into that detail right now.
There is differentiation.
Okay, but all I'm saying is the Gemara is aware, is sensitive to those kinds of issues.
Do you ever listen to two shiurim at the same time? That's what we do.
Okay, so what happens? Okay, so according to Rabbi Yitzchak, it's possible that the aninut would not be strong enough to force a person not to allow his yetzer to, okay, if it was a situation, right? So what happens? Va'aba Shaul, ki kativ, where it's written, hahu in that case, b'midra'im al midotav, okay? In that particular situation, we're saying that the person is,
Suppresses.
okay, he's in conflict, I want to use that phrase, with his values, with the situation. Okay, again, there are multiple pshatim that the shiur I heard, okay, gave for 3 different explanations. Okay, one was it depends on the emotional level of the woman. Okay, was one. Okay, the other was a situation of the aninut, okay, being for real or for fake. Okay, another. So we're going to see the Gemara is now going to come up with a story, okay, to try to clarify what do we mean when we say that it's possible that there might be a conflict in the of emotions and feelings and things like that, right? B'mitraim al midotav v'hachi kama, and this is what we're saying. Ma yitraim al midotav. What do we mean when we say that there is this complaints, conflicts? Okay. V'chi gavar al chata'av, and is he able to overcome his sinful inclinations? Okay, dio chayim shnatati lo. Okay, it's enough, okay, that one should have realized that one is able to live. V'Rabbanan ki hahu ma'aseh tahahi itita. And the rabbis, why are they talking about this? What is their issue? There was an incident with a certain woman, dahava uvda va'afikte, okay, where something occurred, all right, and it was okay. And what happened was they carried it out. Okay, what was carried out? That what they did, according to the Maaseh, was there was a particular woman who, okay, where this woman herself faked her own death.
No, the baby's dead.
Okay. Okay. All right. Va'afik te. All right. And they, according to one explanation, they faked the death of the child. Okay. And went out. According to another, it's a story of a woman who faked her own death.
That's next. This one is still the child. The
Okay.
next case is she
Right.
pretended.
Is another situation. So what happens? In this case, okay, she faked the death of the child, okay, and instead, okay, had
Hardy.
had relations. Aval isha achat. But when we say with one woman,
And 2 men.
okay, what about that specific case that we said that was forbidden?
Permitted.
One
One woman
woman,
and 2
okay,
men
one
is
woman with 2 men. The Mishnah said it was different than the situation of a man and 2 women. Okay, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, Lo Shanu Ela B'Ksherim. This was only taught based on people who had
The 2 men.
who are, let's say, people with valid moral standards. Aval B'Prutzim, but people who live their lives with immoral standards. Afilu be'asara nami lo. Even with 10, it's not. Okay, why do we say that? Hava ma'aseh, there was a situation, v'hotzi'uha asara b'mita, where a woman faked her own death, and they carried her out. Okay, 10 guys carried out the funeral bier, right? Okay, and when they got out of town, so to speak, they had a orgy, all right, whatever we want to call it.
That's what they did.
Amar Rav Yossi, says Rav Yossi, Teda, de mechabre be asara. Okay, Rav Yosef gives the following example. All right, you should know, he
I think
says.
the case is that the woman was, they took her out on the presumption that she was dead, but she was masking to the fact that she was dead in order to have relations.
Well, she
with the men.
pretended to
She
be
pretended
She
to be.
pretended, so it was on both.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
if she wants,
Right.
she might have been
Right.
professional.
Right. So, right. So the mechabre be asara. Okay, we can say that what happens, it's like similar to when 10 people join together, veganve kishura, and they decide that they're going to steal something.
That's
One or
really
2
heavy.
people can't do it on their own because it's a beam, a heavy beam. But if they all get together, okay, then they can be successful in stealing. All right. Velo mechasfe mahadade. And they're not embarrassed one or the other. Nema misayele. Should we say then that this example is similar?
So I would
Okay.
stop here. This case goes on.
I know. I just want to 1 second. Misayele. Okay, and I just want to finish up this point. Right? Namely, let us say here that this is a support to an example that we have elsewhere in terms of the topic of sota. Why? Because in the example of sota, we read, or we've learned, Mosrin lo shnei talmidei chachamim. Okay, that you have 2 sages accompany them on the road where they're bringing the woman, where the husband is bringing the woman as well, to Yerushalayim for the sota test, right? Shema yavo aleha b'derech, lest he have relations with her along the way. Talmidei chachamim en anshei da'alma lo. Do we say that yes, it has to be Talmidei Chachamim, and other men,
Not
common
average
men,
guy.
no? Okay, let's roll over just a moment. Shani Talmidei Chachamim. The sages are desired to be the guards, if you will, the watchmen. Diadei de la Truye Bay, because they know that they are capable of warning him. And that's where we'll stop on the top of Pei Aleph Amud Aleph. Right, it's long daf tomorrow. That's Thursday. And then Fridays is our text
You want me to,
there.
you want me to run off?
If you would,
and
run off,
self-commission?
please. Yeah. You want to run off from me?
What?
What about the last
No, they have the Gemaras. I'll just do
Bring a
Baba
Baba.
Kama, so people don't have to bring two.
Yeah, you're gonna
svaras.
do a little comment.
Yeah.
That's true, but you're making Seamus, right?
What?
You're kind of making Seamus doing that.
I don't
So what?
understand
No, no, no,
You're
no.
kind of making Seamus doing that.
Listen, we've been doing it all
Put
these
'em in
years,
there, there's a
okay?
box.
Yeah.
Besides which, it's not really Seamus. There are no Shamos. If you copy a Siddur, it's Seamus.
I understand that, but
But
you're not
there's
gonna-
a
it's not
fox.
like making a fuss.
There's a fox in the
I
cloakroom.
understand, I use.
He uses the Seamus himself, so for us, you know.
So if I look, I can. It's a tircha to do it. If you tell me I should
No, no,
do
no,
it,
no, do it.
Do it, do it.
I found it on Amazon for
Oh, okay.
$7.19.
So buy
I
him
did
seven.
already.
Oh, you did already.
I did already.
You didn't think to buy me one.
I bought two of them. Well, what is
No,
this?
I have a stender. I don't bother with it. On Shabbos, I use a stender. Although that probably fits in a locker. That's what I'm saying. I have a stender sitting next to the locker box.
This is it folded up.
Yeah, that's fabulous.
It's for him.
All right. You're a shrewd fellow.
Aye.
Listen, Kenny, you know, things have been happening for years. Since one year, the firma have 2 years.